Thank you for tuning in and welcome back to the Sandwich of Coherency. So let's just go ahead and jump right into this. I'm sure that you are aware that recently we talked about the Ukraine again, because this just seems to be now an American problem. Well, let me rephrase that. It seems to be a problem for the American wallet. Because they just want to keep pouring money into it. And, I mean, what the hell is the rest of Europe doing? What the hell is the rest of the entire European Union doing? I think it's crazy. Every time something happens anywhere in the world, they all turn to the United States. Hey, give us money. And people in the United States are, hey, like, we're broke, but let's give them money. Well, where does the money come from? Hurt the door. We don't know. We just know that these people need money and we should give it to them. Look, I understand what's going on in Ukraine is a situation. But we've talked about this multiple times. And this all is because the Ukrainian government attempted to nationalize land that was the property of Russia. See, what they're not, and so for people who never caught those, who didn't catch those episodes, understand the media is telling you some garbage. Russia paid off the Ukrainian debt after the fall of the USSR to the tune of $20 billion in exchange for the two regions that they were fighting over when this started. Ukraine traded the land to Russia in the deal. Russia says, give us the money back, take the land. The Ukrainian government doesn't want to give the money back. They don't think they should have to. It belongs to Ukraine. You have a debt to pay. But that doesn't matter to the Democrats. Why? Because they've been trying to get into the Ukraine region for a very long time. Why? Because one of the two, I think it's two they have, but the larger of the two, the major naval port for Russia is right there in that section of Ukraine in the Black Sea. The United States wants to be able to set up bases and essentially have partner control in Russia. Now imagine you're Russia and now the United States is technically by proxy has control over your naval port. If the roles were flipped and this was US and Russia was doing that kind of nonsense, North Korea or China or anybody who's doing any of that kind of nonsense, the United States would be doing exactly what the Russians are doing. It is a threat to the national security and sovereignty of the United States. So you cannot fault Vladimir Putin for the aggression that he's displaying. I'm not saying that I support it. I'm not saying that I condone it. But that doesn't mean I can't talk about the truth of the situation. Just because I think it's wrong doesn't mean I need to lie about it to make myself feel better. I'm not going to lie to myself so I feel comfortable in, disapproving of his actions. I understand what he's doing, but that does not mean I agree with it. Now, understanding that this is a situation that the Ukrainians caused for themselves and a problem that they caused for Europe, I truly believe that the Europeans need to step up to the plate and open up their wallets. If the Ukrainians need money, then the rest of Europe should be giving them money. Because this is in their back gardens. This is their territory. You've got the United States media getting reports from the government saying, oh, we assisted in blowing shit up that belongs to the Russians. Why would they release that information and make sure that it's loud and clear that the Russians heard it? Is it because the United States is trying to egg it on because they want to be able to get involved in this conflict? And I've likened it to World War II before, but the comparison rings true. To me, this is a similar instance of what was happening with the War Department working with the British government, their agents that they sent to the United States, representatives, trying to, in actual meetings with transcripts, to try and find a way to get the American people behind invading Germany. Because at that time, the U.S. did not want to. The citizens did not want to. But they found a way. It's just like the Gulf of Tonkin incidents. Yes, they found a way. And to continue the fighting in Vietnam, what did they do? They posted the troop movements on national television so that the Viet Cong knew exactly where the American troops were and were able to ambush them. But again, this situation that's happening over there is a big deal. And I know I sound harsh about this, but there are a lot of problems happening in America that the U.S. government can't seem to do anything about, but somehow they keep coming up with money out of the blue. And then they tell the American people, don't worry, it's fully paid for. And people keep saying, yeah, it's fully paid for. See, we can spend all this because it's fully paid for. How much money do you think there is? They keep saying we're going to spend these billions. We're going to get this idea to spend a few trillion here, a few trillion there. Whom is paying for it? Oh, we're going to take it from the rich. How many times are you going to take it from them? Oh, we got this new thing we want to do. It's going to cost about $2 trillion. So, just so you know, corporations, everybody else, we're going to be jacking you for more money for this and for that and whatnot. How long do you think it's going to take for these companies to just leave the United States? Move themselves to tax havens? Many already have. Why? Because of this kind of nonsense. Just imagine it on a national scale of what's happening in California. Why are companies and people leaving that awful state? Because the taxes are astronomical. Where they literally basically tell you, if you are successful, we're going to have to take more from you. Just so you know, if you want to make it, you got to be willing to pay more. Do you understand that there are people who aren't going to try like you did? They're not going to put in the work and the effort that you did, but just because that this person decided to be a lazy twat and you didn't, there was no reason that they should not be able to eat and live and feel like you do. So you're going to pay for it. So as you go up, just expect you will have to take everybody else with you. Doesn't matter how you feel. You want to keep for yourself? Fuck that. That can't be allowed. That's selfish. There are people that are struggling. How dare you earn to take care of yourself and others that are close to you and not care about absolute total strangers, which I have no problem with helping. We have government programs specifically for that. We have some of the greatest social programs in the world designed to help people But because of the bureaucracy and everybody has to get theirs first, the money never makes it to the people. How is it that we were still, the problems we're talking about with the wealth problems, the poverty, the low income, the poor and destitute people of the United States, even in 1964, this was the same problem that they were talking about. Listen, understand that now in 2022, these same social problems that we have now, financially and whatnot speaking, they were having them, even still, before 1964, but 1964 I want to be specific about because, that's just the time. But we were spending, $7 billion, which was more than enough to take care of, actually, and supplement the low-income citizens of the United States, which actually would have lifted them out of poverty in a matter of years. The problem is the money didn't make it to the people. Now we're what? How many hundreds of billions of dollars do we spend on this each year? And the problem keeps increasing exponentially. At some point, you have to say, well, we have this program that's meant to feed the homeless. 10 years ago, we were spending, say, hey, 200,000 and, let me rephrase that. To not just feed the homeless, but help get the homeless population down. 10 years ago, we were spending 200,000. 10 years later, we're spending what? And just for example, 500 million. Because that's about how it is to me. It just keeps going up and up and up and up and up and up and up. And they just got more money they want to spend. Where is it coming from? Please, those of you who are listening that are on the left, ask yourself, really, don't sit there in the meeting and say, well, we're going to tax the wealthy. I'm serious. I want you to understand there's not that much money. There's not that much money for all of it. We don't have the money to pay for the things we already are trying to do. So where is this extra money coming from? Understand, if you tax companies out of existence, you will have no one to take the money from. And if there's no businesses to take from, guess whom they're coming for next? They're coming for the citizens who wanted them to pass these laws. See, that's the thing. You gotta die by the sword that you chose to live by. If that's what you want to do, you cannot be upset and complain when they come after you. I mean, this is a terrible comparison, but I'm going to say it. I know you've heard it, but it is what it is. It's the same thing with whole bodily autonomy. We must be able to tell people what to do with their bodies. Make them listen to me. I don't want them outside without a mask. Make them take this injection. I don't care what their doctor says. Yeah, I've been saying this for a long time, but this is the reality. They don't care. They didn't give a fuck. They had no fucks to give about you, and they had no qualms about wanting the government to go door to door to force it on you. And if you didn't do it, well, you go into a concentration camp. They threatened the ideas of taking your kids away. There's one state, is it Pennsylvania? Don't quote me on that. I could be wrong about that. But I just remember catching an article, just saying that they want to have a tax on parents who decide to not get vaccinated. Now they're coercing you. We're back to coercion. We want to force people to do this. You have nobody. You have no choice. And the idea now with the abortion thing is, my body, my choice. The government shouldn't tell me what to do. When you decided that you wanted the government to force medical procedures on people, to punish people for not getting medical procedures, you threw my body, my choice, my bodily autonomy out the window. You gave up your right to say that. You've given up your right to feel that. Why? Because you felt it was okay to impose it on others. But now that it seems like the government's you're labeling it as the government telling you what to do with your body, even though that's not the case. It's the federal government passing it back down to the states, and your state's going to tell you what to do with your body. And you really should sit back and be quiet and accept whatever comes at you, because remember, you were the same ones that said you don't care about choice. Think about it. Think about what people said. Screw their choice. Screw their bodies. They need to think about other people that they could affect if they do not take these medical procedures. So I don't want to be worried. So government, I want you to force it on them. Okay? Think about that. I don't care about your body. I don't care about your choice. I'm thinking about the other people, not just you. Okay. Pro-lifers can use that same argument. Doesn't matter about your body. It's not your choice. They're fighting and worried about the other person with you, that person that's growing inside of you. See how that works? Technically, it's along the same lines. It's not quite exact, but it is still, you're saying it's my body, my choice. I should be able to do what I want. I don't care what other person it affects, i.e. the baby. It's the same. So you're hypocrites. And really, you got to understand, you can honestly say you brought that on yourselves. You spent 2 years screaming for it. People were assaulted in the street. Think about it. The leftists, okay? Not all women who want abortions are leftists. So let's understand that. Let me make that clear. But understand that leftists, these Antifa fucktards and all this shit out west and all that nonsense, and DC and New York. Think about this. It was my body, my choice is what those that you would say on the right were saying. Okay. All right. I'm not wearing a mask. I'm going to walk down the street without a mask. And you had leftists assaulting them because they chose to do what they wanted with their body and have a choice. Think about the videos and all the stuff you saw, people getting jerked off of subways and public transport by local police and whatnot, and being cheered on for it because those people dared to exercise their choice over their body. But I've gotten way off what I wanted to talk about, so let's just circle back, as Jen Psaki would say, and let's get back to Ukraine. Because the reality is, what's happening is this comes down to money. Money that the United States doesn't have. So let's listen to Rand Paul, because Rand Paul gave a very good explanation, and I think that every American needs to hear this.
President.
Senator from Kentucky.
Reserving the right to object, my oath of office is to the U.S. Constitution, not to any foreign nation, and no matter how sympathetic the cause, my oath of office is to the national security of the United States of America. We cannot save Ukraine by dooming the U.S. economy. In March, inflation hit a 40-year high. Gasoline alone is up 48%, and energy prices are up 32% over the last year. Food prices have increased by nearly 9%. Used vehicle prices are up 35% for the year, and new vehicle prices have increased 12% or more.
Oh, I just want to pause it and see how many of you remember when the Biden administration in the White House and Democrats in the House and the Senate tried to tell you that, hey, this is good for the lower class and middle class families. and citizens. This is good for you because now rich people have to pay more. Yes. Now, quote unquote, rich people have to pay more for fuel. But guess what? The regular people that are just trying to get to work every day to pay the bills got to pay the same price, baby. So please, how is it good for the guy who's working 60, 70 hours a week to try and put food on the table and he's not making a lot of money, trying to feed himself, his wife, 2 kids. And now you just jacked up the price of him getting to work. And apparently that's good for him. Oh, let us continue.
Yes, inflation doesn't just come out of nowhere. It comes from deficit spending. The United States spent nearly $5 trillion on COVID-19 bailouts, leading to one of the highest and most sustained levels of inflation in U.S. history.
I got to pause it right there. This is important. 5 trillion. Over $5 trillion. And see, this is what I've been talking about. Compare that with, what did they say? $6 billion, you could end world hunger. Elon Musk, $45 billion could have helped to end world hunger. Think about it. Okay? If that's the case, with $5 trillion, like I've said before, every citizen in America should be eating steak and lobster 3 meals a day. And hell, snacking on it. You should all be eating the highest priced, most expensive, most elite food that the world could buy. If all you needed was $6 billion, and I guess now $45 billion, hell, $5 trillion in 2 years should have done the trick. That should have done the trick, but hell, I like to say this. How many people on the planet are there? How far do you think 6 billion was going to go? Let's continue.
Americans are feeling the pain, and Congress seems intent only on adding to that pain by shoveling more money out the door as fast as they can. This bill under consideration would spend $40 billion. This is the second spending bill for Ukraine in 2 months, and this bill is 3 times larger than the first. Our military aid to Ukraine is nothing new, though. Since 2014, the United States has provided more than $6 billion in security assistance to Ukraine, in addition to the $14 billion Congress authorized just a month ago. If this bill passes, the U.S. will have authorized roughly $60 billion in total spending for Ukraine. For those who say this is not enough, for those of you in this chamber who say that our military spending is never enough, let's put $60 billion into perspective. According to Elias Youssef, a security assistant at the Stimson Center, Kiev would become the largest yearly recipient of U.S. military aid of the past 2 decades. Except for the top 5 countries, $60 billion is more than every other country in the world spends on their entire military expenditures. If this gift to Ukraine passes, our total aid to Ukraine will almost equal the entire military budget of Russia. And it's not as if we have that money lying around. We will have to borrow that money from China to send it to Ukraine. The cost of this package we are voting on today is more than the U.S. spent during the first year of the U.S. conflict in Afghanistan. Congress authorized force, and the president sent troops into the conflict. The same cannot be said of Ukraine. This proposal towers over domestic priorities as well. The massive package of $60 billion to Ukraine dwarfs the $6 million spent on cancer research annually. $60 billion is more than the amount the government collects in gas taxes each year to build roads and bridges. The $60 billion to Ukraine could fund substantial portions or entire large cabinet departments. The $60 billion nearly equals the entire State Department budget. The $60 billion exceeds the budget for the Department of Homeland Security and for the Department of Energy. And Congress just wants to keep on spending and spending. Our allies and partners have sent aid to Ukraine. Some of them even broke long-standing traditions by sending military assistance. Germany, Poland, the United Kingdom, and others are stepping up to defend Ukraine like never before. In other words, it's not all about us. It isn't that we always have to be the Uncle Sam, the policeman that saves the world, particularly when it's on borrowed money. Yet the United States accounted for nearly half of what's been spent so far. With a $30 trillion debt, America can't afford to be the world's policeman. The U.S. is trying to recover from the $1.6 trillion we spent on wars in the Middle East, not to mention the $5 trillion borrowed for COVID. We should not forget that the Soviet Union collapsed in large part, not because it was defeated militarily, but because it ran out of money. In an attempt to save Ukraine, will we doom the United States to such a future? In the past 2 years, the U.S. has borrowed more money than at any time in our history. We are already experiencing the greatest rate of inflation in over 4 decades. The assault on monetary discipline is untenable, and it cannot go on forever. Unless we put an end to the fiscal insanity, a day of reckoning awaits us. Congress should evaluate the cost of continuing down this path. The biggest threat to the United States today is debt and inflation.
And he's absolutely right. And the fact is, we have to borrow the money. And that's the part that it really bothers me the most. We're having to borrow money, and I say this all the time. We keep borrowing money for everyone, but they can't seem to borrow a penny for the United States. And people just don't seem to care, I guess, anymore. I mean, we just can't keep borrowing from China. This is, people wonder, how will the U.S. ever get out of China's pocket? How can the United States ever get ahead if we have to keep borrowing money? If you ever wonder why the U.S. says nothing about the atrocities happening in China to their people, the atrocities happening right now, there are reports of homes after they've been disinfected for people who had COVID. They're just being torn down. Understand that there's $900 million in that bill for NGOs in Ukraine. I mean, it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. And I mean, and he's right. Okay. Look, 60 billion. If that's right, and we're looking at close to the Russian budget militarily, we've accounted for half of all the money that's already been given to Ukraine. Look, at some point, people got to realize, hey, the bank is tapped out, man. We got a whole bunch of hungry mouths over here we got to feed as well. I mean, you're going to have to do with what we got, what we gave you. This is not going to end pretty. Understand that this borrowing, your taxes are going to go up. I know. They told you. They're going to tell you. It's paid for. We're going to tax the rich even more to pay for this grand total of 60 billion we will have sent to the Ukraine. Yep, that's what we're going to do. All we're going to do this. We're going to buy these new jets and all these other things. We're going to take money from the rich. We're going to raise taxes on them and pay for it. Elon Musk has about 300 billion or some shit like that. We'll take 60 billion in his life. Jesus. This is just getting ridiculous. But like I said, we'll wait and see how this goes. Fortunately, Rand Paul has blocked the quick vote on this, so it will be held till next week, and we'll wait and we'll see what happens with it. But I thank you for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.